Lindsey Graham laughed first. That light, dismissive, narrowed-eye laugh, the kind that isn't born from humor, but from mockery, echoed through the chamber long before the debate even began. To him, it was just another routine hearing, another stage to showcase political confidence, another moment where he believed he held the upper hand. But what Senator Graham didn't realize was that this hearing would become a moment that flipped the narrative, challenged his assumptions, and placed him face to face with someone who wasn't intimidated by his rank, his reputation, or his years in office. Jasmine Crockett entered the room calm but razor sharp. She carried no theatrics, no exaggerated expressions, no sarcasm. She came with preparation. She came with clarity. And most importantly, she came ready. The room was tense even before words were exchanged. Cameras clicked, aides shuffled papers, and members adjusted their microphones. The hearing wasn't supposed to be a showdown, at least not officially. But everyone could feel that. Something or someone was about to set the room ablaze. As testimony began, Lindsey Graham leaned back in his chair, glancing around with that familiar smirk. He was relaxed, almost amused. You could tell he didn't perceive Jasmine Crockett as a threat. To him, she was simply another representative, another new voice, someone he believed was stepping into his territory. He interrupted witnesses, cracked jokes, and threw condescending remarks with the subtlety of a veteran who has played the game for far too long. Each time he laughed, his shoulders shook slightly, as if even he couldn't take the conversation seriously. To his supporters, it was confidence. To everyone else, it was arrogance. And Jasmine Crockett noticed every second of it. When her turn came, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't respond with sarcasm. She simply began speaking, and the tone of the entire room shifted. Her voice was composed, steady, and painfully precise. She began by referencing documents, timelines, and previous statements Graham himself had made. There was no hesitation, no scattered notes. Her delivery was surgical. The laughter faded, the smirk softened, and Graham leaned forward. For the first time that day, he was listening. Jasmine Crockett exposed the contradictions in Graham's earlier comments, laying them out piece by piece. Her words weren't emotional. They were factual, sharp, undeniably structured. Every sentence landed like a hammer hitting steel. She paused only when necessary, letting the weight of each revelation sink into the room. The atmosphere tightened. Members who had been casually flipping through papers now found themselves watching closely. She continued, not mocking him, not belittling him, simply dismantling his statements with unwavering accuracy. Graham tried to interrupt. Of course he did. It was his instinctive reaction, one he used often as a defensive strategy. But Crockett wasn't thrown off. She maintained the floor with assertive authority, reminding him of procedural rules he himself had cited in past hearings. The room reacted, some with surprise, some with quiet amusement, and others with admiration, because in that moment, Crockett wasn't just debating, she was commanding the space. Lindsey Graham attempted to laugh again, but this time it fell flat. The confidence behind it had cracked. Instead of mockery, it sounded like discomfort, like a man trying to maintain composure after realizing the conversation was no longer under his control. Jasmine Crockett kept going. She brought up inconsistencies in testimony, statements Graham had glossed over, and questions he had avoided answering directly. Each point was presented with the calmness of someone who had done the work while her opponent had underestimated her. And then came the turning point. Crockett referenced a key detail, one that Graham had dismissed earlier in the hearing with a laugh. She repeated his own words back to him, then followed them with the actual evidence. The contrast was so sharp that the entire room went silent. No one moved. No one whispered. Not even Graham. For the first time, he didn't have a comeback. No witty remark. No loud interjection. No sudden shift in strategy. He simply waited. Crockett continued speaking, but her tone changed. Not louder. Not angrier, but deeper. Firm, like someone who had spent years watching, Powerful people laugh off accountability and finally decided enough was enough. Her message wasn't just for Lindsey Graham. It was for everyone listening, everyone watching, everyone who had ever seen mockery used as a shield against real scrutiny. Crockett wasn't attacking him personally. She was attacking the dismissiveness, the kind that silences important conversations, undermines truth, and derails accountability for the sake of political performance. Her words were so controlled that they almost echoed. Each sentence not only dismantled his earlier mockery, it exposed the weakness behind it. When she finally paused, the silence said everything. Graham didn't laugh. He didn't smirk. He didn't interrupt. He straightened his papers, adjusted his glasses, and responded in a tone that was noticeably softer than before. His confidence had shifted, not gone, but recalibrated by the reality unfolding in front of him. And that was the moment the public noticed. The viral clips didn't highlight Graham's early laughter. They highlighted his silence afterward, his stillness, the look of a man who entered a room, expecting an easy win and left, realizing he had underestimated the wrong person. Crockett wasn't celebrated because she yelled. She wasn't celebrated because she embarrassed him. She was celebrated because she held her ground with intelligence, accuracy, and composure. People saw representation, not just of a politician, not just of a party, but of someone who refused to be belittled or laughed off the stage. The hearing ended not with applause, but with quiet acknowledgement. Even those who disagreed with her politically couldn't deny her performance. She had earned respect not through theatrics, but through undeniable skill. And Lindsey Graham, well, he walked out differently than he walked in. Not defeated, he is far too experienced for that, but awakened, aware, reminded that political seniority means nothing when faced with someone who comes prepared and unafraid. The hearing would later circulate online, millions watching the shift from mockery to seriousness, from laughter to silence, from expectation to realization. The story was simple but powerful. Lindsey Graham laughed first, but Jasmine Crockett destroyed his mockery with nothing more than truth, discipline, and a voice that refused to be dismissed. And that's why this moment became unforgettable.